Hi, everybody. Peter King with the MMQB here, and this is One-on-One with Peter King, presented by the new Windows. You've got an interesting guest this week, Jim Daopoulos, former NFL official and former NFL supervisor of officials. Jim was an on-field official for 11 years, worked in the NFL offices for another 12 years, and I really have a great deal of respect for him analyzing the game, pulling no punches, analyzing the game. But anyway, Jim, I thought we would get you on at the start of the playoffs because I always get hit with a lot of officiating questions that I can't answer, but I'm sure you can, so welcome.
Great to be with you. Happy New Year.
Hey, thank you. So, people, I think, would be curious to find out, how are officiating assignments made for the playoffs? What exactly does the league do, Jim?
Well, basically, Peter, the officials are graded on every call of every game throughout the year. Everything from correct calls, incorrect calls, to their mechanics, to the way they handle the games. And at the end of the season, what they've done this year is they've tried to tier the officials into 3 specific tiers. This was a new process that Dean Blandino brought into the mix this year by tiering them. So the top tier of officials will work into the Super Bowl, the divisional games. Middle tier will work basically the wild card in the divisionals. And the bottom tier will probably not work games this year. So it's all based on an overall performance rating, and that's what happens each week. Officials are graded by the supervisors on their calls.
Jim, I had the good fortune this year to spend 1 week with Gene Sterator's crew preparing for a game, and then at the Baltimore-Chicago game at Soldier Field. And I found out basically how important the grading of officials is. And getting to know Dean Blandino here in his rookie year as the vice president of officiating for the NFL, he has harped on the officials. Please don't concentrate so much on the grading. Concentrate on calling the best game humanly possible. But Gene Steratore said to me, he said, hey, we're human, we're competitive. We want to be the best that we can be, and the way we can be the best is by grading ourselves against the other crews during the season. And it's not like they all made it clear to me, Jim. It is not a situation where they hope that Clete Blakeman blows one in Carolina or Jeff Triplett blows one in Cincinnati. It isn't that at all. It's that they want to be the absolute best they can be so that they will be able to work in the postseason. So do you think officials are they stressed out too much about grades? And is it understandable in your mind if they are?
It's all about grades, Peter. And, I know Dean is going to try to get that out of the equation, but he'll never get out of the equation as long as they run the system the way they do. Guys are very, very competitive. And, when I was on the field, basically what we did, we competed against the other individuals in our position. We competed 1 to 17. And if you were in the bottom third of the group, then you were eliminated from the playoff contentions. And so you always competed against an official above you. And that changed about 10 years ago when Mike Pereira, who tried to change the grading process to get more individuals included in the playoffs, giving more of them an opportunity to work in the playoffs and the Super Bowl. And unfortunately, what's happened with that is that the competition is there, but it's not as it was before, because everyone gets a piece of the playoff pool. They get this money. If they're not the number one official going to the Super Bowl, it's not quite as competitive. But these guys are so concerned about their grades, and it's all about the grades. No matter what anybody says, all they want to know is the call correct or is it incorrect?
Looking at the current state of officiating, as you know, officials are being bashed as much as ever. And the only time I ever really have a problem with an official's call, because I think it's so bang bang that I can see how officials sometimes screw up after we watch it 5 times in slow motion. I don't have any problem really with those kinds of calls. But the problem I have is when a side judge stands right behind the field goal formation, the field goal rush formation in the San Diego-Kansas City game, and there are 7 San Diego Chargers 3 yards in front of him on the right side of the center. That's illegal. There can only be 6. When that is not called, when the call in the Pittsburgh-Baltimore game with Mike Tomlin way over on the white strip and 2 officials running down the field plainly see this and don't throw a flag, that, in my opinion, when I see that, I say those officials should not only be downgraded, in my opinion, they should have to miss a game. They should have one of their game checks taken away. They should sit for a week. That is too simple a call to miss. Your thoughts?
Agree with you 100%. This game of football is a very difficult game to officiate. And I understand judgment calls, and we can always question the officials. Hey, was that pass interference? Was that holding? I have a real problem with these very simple game management mistakes. And the problem that they have, Peter, is there is not an accountability. I understand they're going to make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. That's just part of the game in the NFL. There's always going to be judgment mistakes. But those calls that you just talked about, absolutely. Those are just mistakes that
they can't happen. They cannot happen. And when they happen, I think those guys ought to be disciplined more than they are right now. Jim, I want to get to one other thing. Jeff Triplett is doing the wild card game in Cincinnati this weekend on Sunday, San Diego and Cincinnati. It'll be the 4-week anniversary of the worst replay call in football this year. The call that everybody saw right away was wrong at the goal line. And yet, Jeff Triplett gets a playoff game. You've got America sitting there saying, how in the world does Jeff Triplett get a playoff game? He had a couple of other errors this year, or his crew did. So how does Jeff Triplett land in that kind of the middle group? Did he have such a good year otherwise that he made up for some of the big boners he had?
You saw the Washington-New York Giants game. You saw some of the other games that occurred out there. And those are mistakes that, those are administrative mistakes that are just, again, unacceptable. Okay, maybe he had a pretty good year, Peter, and he had enough correct calls to get him into this tier. But why would you send him back to Cincinnati again?
Yeah.
Why not send him to Indianapolis or Philadelphia or Green Bay? I'm kind of confused by that.
Thanks for joining me, Jim. This has been this week's One-on-One with Peter King, presented by the new Windows.